This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Patterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, we're here. We're live. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to a wonderful Tuesday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Me, Michael Remis, in the chair. In for Hustler. Hustler's off gallivanting in Qatar. Check his social media on Twitter, at Hustlerama. He's got pictures from the Senegal game. I know he bet on them. They did, I think it was an upset over Ecuador. Anyways, you're stuck with me today, filling in on a Tuesday. Happy to be here. Lots to get to as the Jets take on the Colorado Avalanche tonight at Canada Life Center. Big Central Division matchup. Great show coming up. Got a great show. It's like you're hosting SNL. Daniel Fink, we'll get a check-in with the Manitoba Moose. Mike McIntyre on the Jets morning skate. And Conor McGahey, the Avalanche play-by-play voice on their radio broadcast. And before we get into this here, I've got a long soliloquy ready to go. Give a shout-out to our sponsors who make this happen. Canadian Club, Nick and Nicky DQ, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Coolbet, Culligan Water, Consolidated Supply, Vita Health, and of course Wallace and Wallace. Big game tonight, Canada Life Center. It's a litmus test, a measuring stick, a benchmark. We can call it a key indicator, right? For the Winnipeg Jets, who are having a great season to start, taking on the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. The Jets, 13-6-1 after 20 games. This is the fastest start in franchise history after 20 games. Second in the Central Division if you go by points. But since they play less games, we're going to sort by points percentage. They're first in points percentage. Dallas, was looking pretty strong, they played 3 more games. You go around the league by points percentage, the Jets, 8th in the league. I don't think anyone saw this coming into this season. I mean, the roster, pretty much the same. The only thing, new coach. And, they've battled some injuries. On the defense, DeMello, he was banged up for a couple. Logan Stanley's been out. And the bottom 6 forwards, number of injuries. Morgan Barron missed a lot of time. Mason Appleton's out. And, of course, Nikolai Ehlers, one of the top forwards. They played, 2 games? How did we get here, guys? I did not see this one coming. I think one of the top stories around the league. The Jets, they had the coaching change in the summer. We all remember it. I loved it. Trotz watch every day, following what the insiders were tweeting out, listening to Elliot Friedman on his podcast, just for any morsel of info. Didn't work out with Barry, but the coaching wheel landed on Rick. Not Talkit, like Kevin Weeks reported, but Rick Bowness. And the roster really didn't change much at all. Paul Stastny left. He's with Carolina. Nice welcome back for him last week. Andrew Kopp was traded, and they made some other moves, signing Sam Gagner, who's healthy scratch tonight. Actually, healthy, and gave Morgan Barron, who quietly, they got Morgan Barron quietly 5 points in 10 games. He's on the top line tonight with Connor and Dubois. They also signed Saku Manalainen, had 2 goals the other day, and they claimed Axel Jonsson-Fjällby off waivers. Rick Bowness, he's made such an impact here since the start of the summer, preaching accountability, introducing defensive systems that were more clear to the players on what was expected, not expenses. He's preaching more offense from the defense, and he's brought everyone together as a family. They changed up the leadership group, removed the captaincy from Blake Wheeler, and they're going with a leadership by committee approach. They tried to bring the team together with the Banff trip. They got the trip to the Cowboys game, and I famously said last week, teams that watch football together win together. And yes, they've won 2 straight games since everyone took that picture in the box at the Cowboys Thanksgiving game. And they're doing this handing out of the leather jackets. And I still think, like, whenever I see them, I'm like, how smelly are these things? You guys just played a hockey game. They can't smell very good. Are they washing them? Weather's tough to watch. And there's just an overall appearance around the team that they're having way more fun this year than any point last season. Mark Scheifele, at the end of last season, he had the press conference. He wanted to see where this is all going. Really seems like he might be on the way out. But to start the season, he's been a goal-scoring machine, and which definitely helped because Kyle Connor, he couldn't buy a goal. Scheifele's at a career high right now in goals per game and goals per 60 minutes. Got 11 goals, 4 assists, 15 points in 20 games. And also, more importantly, he's shown a renewed commitment to defense. Josh Morrissey, or Josh Norrissey, as he's been mentioned here. I actually thought that was a total joke name, but I think I'm buying into the hype right now. He talked last week about a conversation he had with Coach Bowness in the summer, where Bones said he thought Morrissey could be top 10 in the Norris Trophy voting. Morrissey has found a new level to his game that many didn't think he was there. He was recently, as yesterday, second star of the week by the NHL. 7 points in 4 games, including 2 OT winners. And after 20 games, it's not Mark Scheifele, not Kyle Connor, or Blake Wheeler leading the team in scoring. Or sorry, I even forgot Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's Josh Morrissey. He's got 23 points in 20 games, 4 goals, 19 assists. In a quarter of the season, yeah, we're at the quarter season mark. He's more than halfway to last year's total of 37. Last year's 37. That was his career high. And he's more than doubled his career high of assists per game. 2018-19, 0.42 assists per game. Well, this year, he's at almost 1 assist per game, 0.95. He's not, Morrissey, he's not just leading the Jets in scoring, but look where he is among the league leaders. He is 4th, only behind a former Norris winner in Erik Karlsson. Shout out to him having a bounce-back season. Took him very late for cheap in my fantasy league, so I'm really extra enjoying Erik Karlsson's season. And another Norris winner in Adam Fox. He's 2nd, and in 3rd for defenseman points is former first overall pick Rasmus Dahlin, who's having a breakout as well. So quite the list of names where Josh Morrissey is up there. Another player who's had a huge impact in the first 20 games for this record start for the Jets, Connor Hellebuyck. And look, his play, he was still overall among goalies. He was great, but it wasn't what we've seen from the past. I think part of it, too, the team's play in front of him, they were just giving up way too many high-danger scoring chances to the point where Bruce Cassidy, who was coaching the Bruins at the time, mentioned it. And last season, he had career lows as a starter, 297 goals against average and 910 save percentage. This season, he's back to top 10 in the league in save percentage, 925. That's a career high. And his 243 goals against average is his best number since 2017-18, when he had a 236 goals against average. And you know what happened that season? The Jets went to the conference final. Kyle Connor got off to the slow start, but I was still a believer. I mean, he was still scoring chances. He was hitting posts. He was getting robbed. He's now burying them. But he's got 6 in the last 6 games, 8 on the season, and he's a point-per-game player with 20 points in 20 games. And I almost forgot when I was putting this together about Pierre-Luc Dubois. We had all the offseason drama about, maybe he didn't want to sign here long-term. I almost forgot about that. And, the Montreal and the draft. But while that was offseason, we knew he would bring it on the ice, and he has. It's hard to believe that this Dubois that we're seeing today is the same player who came here after the big trade a couple years ago which was a rough season. I think that was a rough year for just about everyone. Dubois brings exactly what this team needed. He's a big center and a total pain in the ass to play against, and he draws a lot of penalties. Dubois, another player on pace for career highs. He's got 19 points in 20 games, 0.95 points per game, better than his previous career best, 0.74 points per game. And he was a guy last year, too. He spoke a lot about how the team was standing still. They were all tired. He seemed overly unhappy with the Jets system. And he came out in training camp praising the coaching staff this year, saying they know exactly what is expected of them. It's hard not to talk about Dubois without talking about the trade. And it's kind of funny how it's been the last couple of years. It's really been a big yo-yo with Patrick Laine and Jack Ralsovik. Sometimes it seems like Columbus won the trade, and sometimes it feels like the Jets won the trade. And for Columbus, I think right now I'm putting the arrow on Jets. Patrick Laine, he's been hurt, the last couple seasons. When he's in the lineup, he's been pretty good, and I was expecting big things from him and Johnny Gaudreau, but you can't score if you're not in the lineup. And Jack Ralsovik, he's shown flashes at times, but continues to show the inconsistency that was an issue here. Sometimes Ralsovik, he's on the top line, and sometimes he's a healthy scratch. Dubois has been pretty healthy, playing 81 games last year and 20 of 20 this season. I do remember he rested in the preseason and was battling a groin injury. I believe it was groin. I may have misspoke. Lower body? He was battling something. And you have to wonder if this team's success continues, if Dubois, who wasn't really open to signing long-term, although he did end up saying later that he would consider it, if he would sign here, if the price was right. And we did see Roope Hintz actually just got a 8-year contract. I think it was like $8 million AAV. I got to get the exact numbers there. And we got to keep going here down the list. The players who've contributed to this hot start, Blake Wheeler, tough training camp for him, removed from the captaincy, but he's really took it in stride without the burden of having the C on his jersey. Just one of the guys now, very quietly, 16 points in 20 games. He's still got that elite vision and elite passing that made him one of the league's top players through 2017-19. And look, I'm looking at the numbers. It's 6 assists per 60 minutes. Probably not going to get back to his prime years 2017 to 19, where he had 2.5 and 2.4 assists per 60 minutes. But right now he's at 2.1, which is the highest it's been since 2019. One of the other questions heading into this season, Cole Perfetti. How would the rookie forward perform in a top 6 role? And look, sometimes he gets pushed around, and he's taken some pretty bad hits this season. There's no denying the offensive talent of the 21-year-old forward. He's held his own in the Jets' top 6. He's got 11 points in 20 games. He's in a tie for 5th in rookie scoring. Rick Bowness has come in. He's hit all the right buttons, and the players have responded. Look, there was a couple stinkers early on. Hellebuyck had to stand on his head, helping them earn a point. I'm thinking about road games in L.A. and Vegas. And look, if the team continued to play that way, they wouldn't be where they are right now. But they said all the right things, talked about areas where they can improve, and they've backed it up, going 7-3-0 in their last 10. I think they've really impressed since their last week in October, wins against St. Louis, Dallas, Carolina, and Dallas again. They're winning against the good teams in their division, but also winning the games they're supposed to win. Montreal, Chicago twice, and Anaheim. And we can't say that for the Jets last season, where they would routinely lose games against, inferior opponents on paper. And I can put Arizona. They ended up pulling out that game when they weren't at their best. And I was going to put Seattle in there, but Seattle's actually they're having quite the season too. So that was a big win as well. The Carson Soucy game we all remember. But every time I wonder if the Jets are for real. Like last week, after that 6-1 beatdown in Minnesota, they come back with a strong performance, like the one on Friday in Dallas and Sunday in Chicago. And if there's some naysayers out there who want to point to reasons why the success might not be sustainable, look at the team's record in overtime and 1-goal games. 6-1 in overtime this season. They went 7-11 in overtime last year, so there were definitely points left on the table. And the team's record overall in 1-goal games, 7-1-1. Look, you might say some people might say high win percentage in overtime and 1-goal games is luck, and it's going to even out. But it feels like there's something different about this team than last year. Tough test tonight against the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. We remember the first meeting. The Jets got out a 4-3 overtime win after blowing a 3-1 lead. And the team showed their first signs of the resiliency they have shown over and over again this season, winning 31 seconds of overtime off that Neil Pionk howitzer, which happened because of some smart work on the boards by Mason Appleton. Colorado, the lineup you're going to see tonight, not quite the same as the Stanley Cup champion Avalanche. Burakovsky and Kadri lost in a free agency, had a number of injuries. Gabe Landeskog, Val Nichushkin out. Evan Rodriguez was out injured this past weekend. They're also missing Bowen Byram. I mean, that would kill a number of teams, being out basically a full line there. But when you have MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Cale Makar, they've been able to weather the storm. We've talked about the Jets in their last 10, 7-3-0. Well, how about the Avalanche? They're 8-2-0. And the forwards, not what they used to be, but their defense, I think, rock solid back there. Makar, Taves, Gerard, Josh Manson, Eric Johnson, and Byram when healthy. Great game tonight. Hockey Fights Cancer Night at Canada Life Center. Make sure you get there early for what's going to be an emotional ceremony. And the Jets coaching staff, I think we can all say it's worked out pretty well. I see a number of people in chat mentioning Bowness as a Jack Adams Coach of the Year candidate. I think, Hustler called him in the summer that he might be a miracle worker if he could turn this team around. And I think he might be pretty close. But I couldn't help but notice, and I'm seeing a lot of it in the chat, what's happening with the Florida Panthers. They're coming off back-to-back losses involving blown leads. On Saturday, 4-1 lead over the Blues, and they just sat back in the third period and allowed the Blues to tie it up 4-4, then lost in overtime. Last night, big national game. Panthers were in Edmonton. Montour scored the goal-ahead goal with 5 minutes left in the third, and with 4.4 seconds, Evan Bouchard tied it up for the Oilers. Panthers went to overtime, didn't even touch the puck. Draisaitl and McDavid only needed 22 seconds to work their magic and score the winning goal. The Panthers came into the season very high expectations. They won the President's Trophy last year and then got bounced early in the playoffs. We're almost a week here after U.S. Thanksgiving. We're at the quarter mark of the season. And the Panthers out of a playoff spot in the very tough Atlantic Division. They're showing some of the same traits that the Jets did last year, underachieving with high expectations, losing games to teams they should beat like Chicago, Arizona, and Columbus, repeated losing in overtime, overplaying veterans, and a bottom third penalty kill. Now, look, they're only 1 point out, so it might be early. And they did have some roster turnover, and Alex Barkov now hurt. So there is time for Florida to turn things around. But when you look around at the standings, having Florida out of the playoffs is something that definitely stands out. And look, you look at the changes they made and the changes the Jets made. I'll just say it's interesting, and we'll leave it at that. And look, the Jets are playing tonight, but there's 9 games on the schedule. One of them is Florida going on against Calgary, back-to-back, a couple time zones away from their home. And speaking of Florida, they're in the middle of a road trip across multiple time zones: Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver Thursday, Seattle Saturday, and ending here for the big return December 6th. Should be a fun one. So again, 3 time zones for Florida before that December 6th game. That's the Mountain, Pacific, and Central. And we'll just go on the Jets lines for tonight before we bring in Daniel Fink, and I'll touch on a couple things. Show it to everyone in chat. Thank you. Everyone who is here, by the way, I got to say, hit the thumbs up, hit the red subscribe button. How many can we get to here? We got 232 people in here. Thanks, everyone. 57 likes. I think we can raise that up. And we haven't really raised our subscriber numbers. I'm trying to get to like 10K, but it's really, I don't know if I'm not attracting new people here or what. But, oh well. We're having fun here. Put on a great show. The Jets are playing great, and that is so much fun doing this doing this every day. But here, we got the Jets lines for today. Connor, Dubois, Barron, Perfetti, Scheifele, Wheeler, Axel Jonsson, Fjallby. Can I just call him AJF? Is that what we're doing? That's what I got on my sheet here. Lowry, Menelainen, coming off that's the sniper Menelainen. Harkins, Gustafsson, Asimont. And then on defense, Morrissey, DeMello, Dylan Pionk, Sandberg, Schmidt, and Connor Hellebuyck. And a couple notes. Dominic Toninato, he's out. He played last game, but David Gustafsson, as I mentioned, he returns. He's helping on the penalty kill. And Bones mentioning that Colorado, they got this elite power play. MacKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, Lehkonen. Actually, I'm not sure who else. Rodriguez is out, so I don't know who they got in there. Comfer, maybe? I got to check that out. We'll talk to Conor McGahey later. Logan Stanley, he skated. He didn't travel with the team on the last road trip, but he seems like he's a bit away. And yeah, we'll be talking a lot with Mike McIntyre later, but Morgan Barron moving on to the top line. And I did mention quietly, he's got 5 points in 10 games, and he almost had 2 yesterday. He had 1. Last game he had 1. And Sam Gagner, healthy scratch again. Bowness talked about that. I will play that audio later. He said the power play getting stale. They had to switch it up. And Mikey Asimont, and we'll talk about him coming up with Daniel Fink. He's making an impact too. We do have the Avalanche lines. We'll go deeper to that later on in the show. Arturi Lehkonen, he's fit like a glove there. MacKinnon, Rantanen. And now the forward depth, not what it used to be. Cogliano, Comfer, O'Connor's playing a bigger role. The newly signed Alex Galchenyuk, Alex Newhook, and Foudy making his debut. We got Hunt, Magna, and Blid on the fourth line. Defense, always solid. Taves, Makar, McDonald, Manson, Gerard, and that's Eric Johnson. And I think Georgiev is the likely starter as per daily face-off. And we did have some bomber news as well. Look, we tried talking Bombers here on Friday with Ed Tate, and I talked about it with Darren, and it seemed people not ready to move on from the Grey Cup loss. But look, Kyle Walters, he's got to do his job. He's got to move on, and he's been hard at work. We talked about it yesterday. Willie Jefferson signed to an extension, and then today, big announcement, Adam Bighill, 2-year extension. And I did see Derek Taylor. He's the big stats guy. I know maybe a little bias based on his employer, but he's praising this Bighill extension. Says he was number 1 in coverage among middle linebackers this season, and the Bombers changed how they use him. And he's expecting another all-star caliber season from Adam Bighill. And look, the Bombers, they're going for 3 Grey Cups in 4 seasons. Not a three-peat, but I think you can still look. I still think they can get the dynasty label if they can pull off 3 and 4. But the one name we're still waiting for, Mike O'Shea, and I still have a hard time believing, and it might even be true that he hasn't thought about his season, thought about his upcoming his contract at all throughout the season. So maybe they're just starting to get to talk about it, and we'll see how that goes going forward. But you would have to think that if Collaros and these guys are signing, there is hope that Mike O'Shea will sign on the dotted line too. We got Daniel Fink coming up. Talk some Moose as they return home. And here, Hustlers got a big message here. And I'll be back here with the Fink. One sec. Oh, that's not the right one. One sec.
If you missed it a little earlier this year, we've teamed up with Wallace & Wallace and Josh Morrissey for a program we're really proud of, the Wallace & Wallace Unsung Hero Program in support of the Dream Factory, which Josh is very much involved in. Hey, you know about the people that are making things happen quietly in our community volunteers, people taking care of those in need, people selflessly devoting their time and effort to make our community a better place. Not looking for recognition, but probably deserving it. We're calling on you, WST listeners, to nominate an unsung hero in your community by firing us an email and telling us a little bit about them at unsunghero@winnipegsportstalk.com. We're going to share some of these stories throughout the month, and at the end of the month, we'll be drawing for an unsung hero, and they will win an autographed jersey from Josh Morrissey. And from the WST listener recognizing our unsung hero, Wallace and Wallace is going to make a $500 donation, which in turn will be matched by Josh and Margot Morrissey in the name of the Winnipeg Sports Talk listener who submitted the nomination to another group of unsung heroes, the kids at the Dream Factory. If you go to the links in the description of today's show, or just go to winnipegsports.com/links, you can also click on what the Dream Factory's put up, a little bit more on the great work that they do, and an option if you'd like to support the Dream Factory with a donation, you can do that as well. All part of the program of the Unsung Hero. But again, give us your nominations, Unsung Hero at winnipegsportstalk.com. We can't wait to tell you about some of these great stories of people doing good things in the community, and obviously supporting such a great charity here that working with Josh Morrissey in the Dream Factory. All right, Vita Health Fresh Market. Hey guys, November is Men's Health Month. Choosing the right natural health products are key, and Vita Health carries everything you need to help relieve prostate issues, reduce stress, and support mental focus. From Canadian brands like Prairie Naturals, who donate a portion of sales to the Canadian Men's Health Foundation. But hey, there's a lot of sickness going around right now. If you're looking for the best prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, groceries, and Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products, you got to pop by Vita Health, a great local company, family owned and operated since 1936. If you can't make it down to the stores, check out their new fully shoppable website to buy online, schedule a delivery or in-store pickup. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives with 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. And big announcement, if you haven't heard, the folks at Consolidated Supply, great friends of ours, have stepped up big time to help us launch the 12 Days of Marbles and the Marbles Tournament of Champions coming up in December when I am back. Now, we will do a marble race as normal today, but just to give you a heads up, come December, when I am back, we'll be doing 12 consecutive days with a marble race. We'll be qualifying 3 people in each race for our final race, which I believe is going to be scheduled for our final show of 2022. All the qualifiers will be in that final race, and our last act of business in the year of 2022 will be to race all the qualifiers, and the winner will receive a pair of Bomber season tickets courtesy of our friends at Consolidated Supply. Consolidated Supply, the leaders in spas and hot tubs, outdoor kitchens, small engine repair, and all things golf, irrigation, landscaping, and artificial turf. Find out more at cte.ca. What a lot of people don't know is that they are open to the public. So pop by, see Spicy, see Joe and the gang, 1395 Niagara Road East. But in the meantime, check out everything they can do for you at their relaunched website at cte.ca. Big thanks to Consolidated Supply, and cannot wait to get going with the Marbles Tournament of Champions coming up in December.
Hey, thanks, Huss, for coming on. And we got a great guest, Daniel Fink, play-by-play voice for the Manitoba Moose coming up. Moose returning home after a road trip. Big 11 a.m. game Thursday against Milwaukee and Saturday at 2 p.m. And actually, we're giving away a pair of Moose tickets to Saturday's game. It's the Manitoba-made game, giving away pierogies. Just visit our website, winnipegsportstalk.com. Click on the contest, and you can, get entries a number of ways by following us on whatever social media platform you prefer and subscribing to our email list. So also winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. You can get it there and enter the contest. We'll be giving those away Thursday night. Okay, time to bring him in. Daniel Fink, voice of the Moose. Dan, what's going on? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing swell. Nice to be back on home soil here and get a couple nights in our regular beds before, we'll be off on the road again. I'm pretty sure we're home for about 2 weeks out of the next month or 6 weeks or something like that. So it's a little bit busy, but it's good to be home and looking forward to a big weekend against the Milwaukee Admirals.
Yeah, a couple games this week. 11 a.m. start on a Thursday. What's going on there? Don't have too many of those.
Yeah, it's actually really exciting because we've done a few of these on the road, the school day games where they bring in all the kids, and it's deafening and slightly horrifying. Yeah, it's really exciting to actually get to do one here in Winnipeg's first time we've ever done it. I'm pretty sure the Gold Eyes do something similar, but on the hockey side, this is the first time we've done this with the Moose. So really looking forward to it. There's going to be over 6,000 kids in the building that morning, so it's going to be an incredible atmosphere. There is nothing quite like being in the middle of that insanity when the building throws up a noise meter or something like that, and 6,000 kids start screaming at the same time. It's a different atmosphere. It's very, very loud, and you know what? You think the players might be a little sleepy off the top, but all it takes is that opening deafening screech, and everybody's awake really quick. So it's a lot of fun. It's an important message coming along with the game. We're partnered up with Project 11 of the True North Youth Foundation to talk about mental health throughout that day. So it's great to be able to mix hockey and an important message, and really looking forward to it.
And then talk about promotions. You got some great promotions this year. Saturday, 2 p.m. against Milwaukee. I mentioned we're giving away tickets, but you guys will also be giving away pierogies.
Yeah, we're talking about 6,000 students on Thursday, 6,000 packs of pierogies in the house on Saturday that we'll be handing out. So really looking forward to that. I know it was a real big hit last year with folks who thought they might get like a couple pierogies, and no, here's a whole couple bag of pierogies to take home with you. I mean, I really shanked it last season. We had a few extra. I had a whole box that I could have taken home. I left it in the fridge at work, but didn't label it. Forgot it. Came back the next day, gone. Everything gone.
Jacked your pierogies?
No, they were kind of in the same fridge as the pierogies that were for everyone. This is all on me. They were just in the wrong fridge, not labeled. By the time I got back, everyone thought that they were just the pierogies for everybody, which is a perfectly reasonable assumption. So I went pierogi-less that season. So I will not make the same mistake twice. Always label your stuff, and maybe don't forget it in the fridge when you're going home.
There you go.
No, it's a great game. Lots of Manitoba themed happenings on the concourse and throughout the game, some Manitoba tunes, things like that. So it's a lot of fun. It was great last season, and always great to celebrate the province.
And we've talked a lot about the Jets, or at least I did off the top, Dan, about them at the quarter season. Now, the Moose, just below the quarter season, played 16 games. They're second in the division in points percentage, but how have they followed up last season, which was a great season? Mark Morrison's first. What has he done here for the encore? Because last year, remember, they were it was a revolving door of roster players, but how has this year gone so far?
Yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting start. I mean, they had that great start out of the gates, the best 5-game start in franchise history, which was a lot of fun to be a part of. And maybe things got a little bumpy from there. They had some troubles with consistency, especially they got into this rhythm of playing kind of 2 games on the weekend, no games in between, that college schedule, and they just weren't necessarily sharp in that first game. And then they'd be great in the second game and kind of get the points back. But they go out on the road, finally a bit more of a consistent schedule. Unfortunately for the Moose, bit of a depleted roster. When you think about the guys who are up with the Winnipeg Jets, Jansen Harkins, Mikey Asimont, Billy Hainela was up. I don't know if you can really count Dominic Toninato. They only had him for 1 game, but that starts to add up. And then on top of that, you had injuries to Leon Gavanka, injuries to Cole Meyer, Brad Lambert, one of the newest ones on the shelf, and then a couple more in Jimmy Olney, Tom Caron as well. So those guys haven't been in at all this season. So the injuries, I think, started to catch up with them. Some very good call-ups from the ECHL, Tyler Boland, Isaac Johnson, Simon Kubicek, all fared well. We saw Jacob Friend as well getting his first game, and he really made an impact with some big hits and quite the tilt in Grand Rapids on Saturday. But you know what? Sometimes there's just no replacing guys like a Mikey Asimont and a Jansen Harkins, who are such key drivers. So the Moose have found some offense. They found kind of a top line with Jeff Ballot, Alex Limoges, and Kevin Stenlund, but it all added up to a 500 road trip, which is kind of the bare minimum that you want to get through. And then they got that while facing a depleted roster. So when you can pull that off, that's not too shabby, and they'll see what they can do against the top team in the division here this week in the Milwaukee Admirals.
Yeah, you mentioned the top line. I remember the summer, the Jets announced the Alex Limoges and Kevin Stenlund signing, and we were kind of like, who are these guys? Now, Stenny, I kept getting confused for Blake Wheeler in training camp. He's a tall guy, lanky guy with the long hair. But those 2 guys you mentioned, they're top of the team's scoring leaders. What have those guys specifically brought to the Moose, and how have they integrated themselves into the team?
Yeah, it's interesting. That top line, I wouldn't say it's the fastest group around, but they're very smart and they're very strong. I mean, you look at what Jeff Malott can do below the goal line. I know you asked about the other two, but an integral part of that group was 7 goals on the season. And for Stenlund, he's just got that big size. He's got good hands in tight. You'll see him just kind of walk around the defense sometimes to make something happen. And for Alex Limoges, he's got a wicked shot. He's very, very smart player. Just seems to create space for himself and his teammates out there. He's done a real nice job of that this season. Seems like he's in on every goal that gets scored. Saw those 3 hook up for beautiful power play goal on Saturday. Just a quick pass down below the goal line from Stenlund to Malott, who just snapped it right back into the slot for Limoges to finish off. So those 3 have kind of found a jam together, and they've been picking up points very, very regularly, and they've been able to really kind of push things along. So it's been very solid. I mean, Stenlund, a bit more of a veteran presence on that group. Limoges, I mean, he's in just his 2nd full season in the American Hockey League, but here's a guy who's 2 games away from his 100th game in the league and already has 75 points, scored 23 goals last year, as did Jeff Malott. And you know what, for Malott, he scored his 7th goal midway through December last season. To late December, he's already at that mark now. So you got a couple of guys, or 3 guys really, who are chasing down career totals already this season. I mean, for Stenlund, his high in the American Hockey League coming into the season was 25 points. Well, he's already halfway there. So it's been pretty impressive to watch those guys go. Moose maybe looking for a little more secondary scoring at times. It's been tough to kind of keep some of those lines together. They had some success early in the season just with being able to kind of out-depth teams. Well, now that's really being tested with some of the call-ups and things like that. So some of those younger players who maybe got off to a hot start in the season slowed down a little bit, kind of still trying to find their pace at this level. And it'll be interesting to see what this team that is so young this season, there's kind of a break. You got the teenagers and Lucius and Lambert and a couple of 20-year-olds like Torgerson, Bauer. We had Sakupacek in here this week. Nikkanen, not much older than that. So there's this real young group. There's a couple of more veteran players, but not too much in the way of extreme experience. So could be a team that really builds throughout the season, and they've already given themselves a real nice foundation.
Yeah, you've mentioned those younger players. You know, have to ask you, former first-round picks, Chaz Lucius and Brad Lambert. How are these guys faring in their first rookie pro season?
Well, unfortunately for Chaz, Lucius had to deal with a bit of an injury on the road trip, missed 3 games, but does have a goal and assist in his 2 of his last 3 games. So, or excuse me, he has a goal and assist over his last 3 games. But you know what? It's such an adjustment for those guys, especially for a guy like Lucius who hadn't played pro hockey before and really hadn't played a whole ton of hockey the last couple of seasons. So I feel like it's been a bit of a feeling out process for him at times. But you know what? He's a smart player. He's been able to play a solid role up the middle of the ice, which is such a difficult role in professional hockey. And he's slowly starting to find a little bit of production. For Brad Lambert, obviously has more pro experience, almost 100 games in Liga. And again, still, I think it's a bit of a process, just trying to get these guys integrated in and figuring out where they're supposed to be on the ice at all times, especially for Lambert in that wing spot, and using his speed consistently and effectively. So it's a process, and that's what they're here for. They're here to learn, and it's not always going to be pretty. You know, sometimes there's going to be those plays that make you scratch your head, but they get right back out there the next shift and try it again. So that's why they're here, and that's what Mark Morrison and the coaching staff is working on them with, and you look to see that development throughout the season. Yeah,
Brad Lambert, I should mention, rookie pro North American season, as he did play pro in Europe last year. Goaltending. It's a bit of a question mark coming into the year. Mikhail Burden going back to Russia, but what have you seen from the tandem, Oskari Salminen and Arvid Holm?
Yeah, it's been a bit mercurial for the Moose at some points. I mean, you look at Arvid Holm's numbers in his wins, and it's been absolutely sensational. You look at it in losses, and it's always going to be worse. You lost the game. Usually the score doesn't, the goal count doesn't favor you, but it's kind of been when it rains, it pours for either goaltender. So just trying to find that consistency. And again, that's going to happen with young goaltenders. And I think you're seeing that throughout the Central Division right now. There's a lot of top goaltending prospects like Yaroslav Askarov, who we'll see this week with Milwaukee. He was a first-round pick. Jesper Wallstedt, another top pick for the Minnesota Wild. Sebastian Kosa. not with Grand Rapids right now, but was in for a couple of games here and there. So you get this situation where you have all these young goaltenders in the division. Well, they all have these great pedigrees, but they're still young goaltenders. So anything can and will happen. And the Moose tandem, maybe a little bit older than some of those guys, but still very youthful in the North American game. So we saw a couple of pretty good performances over the last little bit from Arvid Holm, from Oskari Salminen. So again, it's about nailing down that consistency and looking forward to seeing how they build throughout the season. Because again, like the rest of the team, they've given themselves a pretty good foundation through the feeling out process early in the season. And when you can give yourself that, it gives you such a nice jumping off point to get to. So we'll see what the mix is like this week with the 2 games split up by a day. Salmonen's pulled most of this, or the bulk of the starts, even though it hasn't been a huge split so far. So I would guess we see both goaltenders, but who knows?
Yeah, a lot of talk here about Jansen Harkins, who you did mention started off the season with the Moose, came back, making an impact with the Jets lineup. How did he handle the Moose, and what did you see from him in the games there that has now translated up at the NHL level?
You know what? Jansen Harkins handled his trip to Moose Country as well as anybody could. I mean, it's obviously for a guy who played the last couple seasons in the NHL, that's a blow. That hits the self-esteem, that hits the ego a little bit. But it can also serve as a wake-up call. And for Jansen Harkins, he got into the lineup and he was on a mission. There was no question he knew where he wanted to be, and he didn't display that by sulking. He didn't display that by not giving it his all every shift. And you know what? People will question that. Well, why would a guy do something like that? It happens. We've seen it before. We'll see it again sometime, whether it's with the Moose, whether it's somebody else on another team. We've seen it many times in the American Hockey League. It does happen. And sometimes it takes a little bit of adjustment, then a player's fine. Sometimes they don't recover. Haven't really seen that in my time here. But for Jansen Harkins, he hit the ground running. He came at it 100%. Every shift, and that's what he needs to do to be an everyday NHLer. So it was really impressive to watch how he came in. He was immediately a leader in the room. He was on the attack every shift, and for Jansen Harkins, that's his game. He's going to attack. He's going to bring it with speed. He's got that skill to finish things off as well. And at the American Hockey League, that makes him an elite player. And he certainly was a driver for this Moose team when he was here. And it was a good early indication, or a good early example for some of these young players, what they need to do. And he was rewarded with that call-up, which helps as well. And then following suit shortly after him, Mikey Asimont. So it was really refreshing to see how well Jansen took his time with the Moose, how he approached it mentally, and to see him rewarded for that, and now starting to produce again with the Winnipeg Jets is always great to see.
Yeah, Harkins, 9 points in 6 games with the Moose, 5 goals, 4 assists, and he's translated that to with the Jets, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points in 7 games, and he played with Mikey Asimont. Any surprise that impact that he's made with the Winnipeg Jets so far? It seems like he's become a mainstay there on the fourth line there today with David Gustafsson and Jansen Harkins, who we just talked about.
Zero surprise. I mean, here's a guy who is, I mean, Jets fans have seen it now, right? That's Mikey Asimont. He's a guy who other teams don't want to play against. He's one of the most annoying players on the ice for the opposition, just because he tries and works so hard every shift. He's in your face. He's spinning you off pucks. He created that one goal with just that little move with his legs kind of down low to free up the puck that he does. And he just drives the opposition insane. And for him, it's great to see the production coming as well. But like Harkins, he's a guy who's just on the attack constantly. And when you can drive the play like that, you're going to find success. And for Asimont to be last season, came into the organization, he found some very early success. I believe he scored in 4 or 5 of his first 6 games. And then found maybe some consistency wasn't there. And that's one of the big differences between AHL players or guys who spend a lot of time in the AHL and guys who are everyday NHLers sometimes. It's that consistency. A lot of guys, if not all the guys on the Moose roster, can play a game or two in the National Hockey League and fill up minutes, no problem. It's doing it every day for 82 games. And for Asimont, he found that consistency this season. Looked like the same player every shift, every game rolling through. And now he's gotten that opportunity and he's run with it with the Jets.
Yeah, I think a lot of people enjoy the way he plays, and I think it's something that the Jets didn't really have in their lineup, and he certainly brought an element of what sandpaper and what do you say, pesky? Is that the word?
That would be one way to describe that. There's probably other words that I can't say on a broadcast, but yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch just because of how hard he goes every single shift. And you know what? When you work that hard, you're usually rewarded for it. And in this case, he has been, and it's great to see.
Okay, and last one for you, Dylan Samberg spent parts of the last 2 seasons with the Moose. Feel like a proud father when guys who spend so much time with the Moose come and become NHL, graduate to being an NHL regular.
There is nothing better, I think, for us at this level than to see, like, especially last season was unbelievable because it seemed like once a week somebody was doing that hot lap in warmups. But to see guys make their NHL debut, it's unbelievable. To see guys get their first goal, like Asimont did a couple of weeks ago, it's unbelievable. That you should see that the group chats light up when something like that happens, and it's a lot of fun, and it gives you a different perspective on how these players are in this league. And when you look at what they've accomplished, and I don't know if you feel ownership over any of that, it's their accomplishment. They've put in the work. But these are your coworkers, your friends, people like that you're seeing move up and achieve their dreams, and there's nothing better than that. So for Dylan Samberg to be an NHLer is a great thing. To watch guys like Kyle Connor achieve what they've achieved after spending a season with the Moose, or Josh Morrissey. I didn't have him; he was up to the Jets by the time I got here. But guys like that, or I mean, heck, even a guy like Johnny Kovacevic, who's found a place in Montreal. That's real exciting to see. And those are the achievements that you celebrate. And it's probably the best part about working in the American Hockey League, is seeing that development, seeing those guys achieve what they've worked their whole lives to get to.
Well, Dan, you're always a great guest on this show. You've got the great background as well. I don't know whether it's like the the Canada Life Center ice, the Hockey for All Center ice. You got, what is that? I don't even know what. Today
we've got the Auto Mall back here at Hockey for All in the parking lot. Did anyone catch that Zamboni driving behind me, or was that out of the frame? I don't know. I looked at the screen for a second. It's not there anymore, but a few minutes ago, one went trundling by. I almost turned around to look at it, but you know what? The background game's got to remain strong. I got to do what I can for the people.
Very strong, Dan. You bring the headset and the microphone. Love having you on anytime, Dan. Thank you so much. And yeah, you'll be at the Moose game Thursday, 11 a.m., but also Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m., Manitoba Maid game. And as I mentioned, we're giving away tickets, winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. Go to winnipegsportstalk.com, go to the contest tab, and you can enter, and we'll give those away Thursday evening. Thanks again, Dan, and hopefully we can touch base soon. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Sounds good. And if you're not lucky enough to win those tickets, make sure you head over to moosehockey.com/tickets to get yours for any upcoming game here. Love to see you down at Canada Life Center.
Yeah, thanks again, Dan. And yeah, they definitely had some the Moose and the Jets both giving her with the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals on tickets. Well, we talked about the Moose. We're going to talk about the Jets next. Big game tonight, 7 p.m., Canada Life Center. Mike McIntyre was at the morning skate, and we'll talk with him about the Jets lineup and take an overview of the Jets after 20 games. Who would have thought? First in the Central in points percentage? How did this happen? I know I talked about it off the top, but we can we'll keep it going here. But first, Hustler's coming in with a couple words.
Not AutoCorp, great sponsors of ours since day one here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, a neat place to start any search for a new vehicle, or if you're considering upgrading your vehicle. Speaking of upgrading, if you're thinking about selling your vehicle, the Not Experts are the consignment experts here in Winnipeg. They'll help you take all the hassle of selling your vehicle out, get the best price possibly for it, and of course, also help you get into the new car of your dreams. Why not get into the car you've always wanted with the help of the Not team at a great price at Not AutoCorp? And folks, don't forget, with winter here, if you haven't yet got your winter tires on, what are you waiting for? Winter tire specials and the MPI payment plan now at Not. Why not get safe winter tires and pay later at Not AutoCorp. Find them online at not.ca or pop down and see them in person at Waverly and McGillivray and tell them your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. Folks, I'm sure I'm getting a few comments in the chat about this nice Canada shirt I've got. Are you ready for Canada in the World Cup? Get the red on. And man, Royal Sports has the best selection I've seen anywhere of Team Canada gear for the World Cup. Alphonso Davies jerseys, Estacio, Jonathan David, and more. Hoodies, toques, scarves, everything you need to show your national pride as Canada returns to the World Cup for the first time since 1986. And with the holidays just around the corner, you can pretty much bang off all of your holiday shopping for the sports fans in your life at Royal Sports. Thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, Bomber gear, and more. Blue Jays, Raptors, NFL, you name it. And of course, Royal is the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champ of all things hockey as well. Family owned for over 40 years. Pop by CJ Greg and their great staff, 750 Pembina Highway. And of course, follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Hey, holidays coming up, a new year just around the corner. Guys, thinking about maybe upgrading that wardrobe you've been putting off? Well, don't wait any longer. Pop on down and see Andrew and the gang at F Apparel at 190 Smith Street for the new wardrobe for the new you. Custom suits beginning at just $400. The entire process so quick and easy. Pop in, quick few measurements, decide your color, fabrics, pattern, style, and a few weeks later, you've got a beautiful new suit from F Apparel. And hey, if you are in a wedding party or thinking about getting married and getting some of the fellas in to stand up for you, do not waste your money renting tuxes for your big day. Go to F Apparel, get custom suits for all the guys. And right now, if you book in and get measured by the end of November, everyone in the wedding party will get 10% off and a free shirt, savings of about $130 per person. Pop on down to F Apparel, 190 Smith Street. Find out more information or book an appointment online at EPHapparel.com.
All right, thanks, Huss. And if you're just tuning in, he is in Qatar at soccer today. So he's at the Senegal match earlier. Check his Twitter at HustleRem if you want to see some videos for some crazy fan reaction. If you are here, Michael Remis hosting Winnipeg Sports Talk. Make sure you go down, hit that like button, the red subscribe to the channel. Talking, what are we? Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Talking Jets, NHL, sports. Anyways, ready to bring in our next guest, Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Fresh off home from the road trip. All in the central time zone, Mike?
Yeah, it was nice in that same time zone, and yeah, there's no back-to-back, so it was a good the first couple road trips of the year that I had done were both back-to-backs, involved back-to-backs, which bit of a grind. So yeah, it was nice to have a little bit of free time to get out and explore the various cities that we were in. And hey, 3 great cities: Minneapolis, St. Paul, of course. I've got some friends down there that I got to see, and then Dallas is tremendous, and Chicago. Hard to beat those 3 cities. So yeah, it was a great trip and some very interesting hockey. 2 blowouts. Of course, the Jets on the wrong end of the first one, and on the right end of the last one, and then that crazy, wild overtime controversial game in Dallas. So yeah, lots of interesting talking points, and but it's good to be home.
Yeah, I mean, that road trip started off pretty rough in Minnesota, and it's felt like deja vu with the Jets getting blown out again on Thanksgiving weekend there, or the day before after Thanksgiving in Minnesota. But they said all the right things after that. They didn't like their game, and they bounced back. It seems like that's something they've done pretty much all season. But I mean, what did you make of that game in Minnesota, and then them coming back and playing the hockey that we think they're capable of?
Well, what I made of that game in Minnesota, Remo, is I know the Jets have a ton of Minnesota-born players on the team, and they like to have that game scheduled around U.S. Thanksgiving because a lot of guys get to see their families and they have a meal and that sort of thing. But I wonder if after the last two Thanksgivings in Minnesota, where the Jets have been slaughtered by a combined score of 13-2. Last year it was 7-2, I believe, or maybe it was 7-1 actually on Black Friday, and then of course 6-1. So I guess the Jets made a slight improvement this year. They didn't get beat quite as bad this time around, but it's been ugly, and I don't really know why that would be. Other than the obvious, which might be that the players have a lot of other things on their minds when they make that trip. But I wonder if the schedule makers are going to be asked to maybe find a different place for the Jets, either to play on the road next year, or maybe they'll find themselves at home over U.S. Thanksgiving, or maybe they just think third time will be the charm and they can reverse the curse. Whatever the case is, XL has been a bit of a house of horrors, actually. The Jets only have won twice in their last 12 visits down to that rink. That's not including the playoff series, of course, a few years ago. That's regular season. So yeah, it's the Jets have a tough time against the Wild, especially on the road. But yeah, I mean, give credit to this team. We've seen the resilience, and they haven't allowed a bad game or even a bad period to really fester. And that's the mark of a good team, that you don't let the bleeding kind of continue, and multiple games where you just don't have it, and the losses start to add up. The Jets have done a really good job of not allowing that to happen, and that's why they're sitting where they are, tying a franchise best 20-game start to the season with 27 points. And as you mentioned off the top here, you go by win percentage, number 1 in the Central, number 3 in the West, number 5 in the NHL. And who had that on the bingo card? Remo, there's a lot of things that we wouldn't have had on the bingo card. Who had Axel Janssen-Fjällby playing in the top 6? Who had Mikey Asimont on the power play? Those were all things that happened the other night in Chicago. And it speaks to the depth of this organization. And maybe they're a lot deeper than a lot of us thought they were. Maybe they're a lot better than a lot of us thought they were.
Yeah, before I want to get into an overview, but I should mention, I looked it up, Mike. The Jets, and I said this last week, the Jets on the day before or after Thanksgiving in Minnesota, it's not just last year too, they are 1-4. Games in 2015, 16, and 18, and they won one game 3-1. So I felt like I had watched that game before last week, and it certainly had. I do have to ask before we move on. Friday's game, you're in the building for the Hellebuyck helmet off incident.
Askgate.
Like, I don't even know what to call it. Usually you can come up with like a name. Like I made a YouTube, it was like Hellebuyck helmet incident or helmetless Hellebuyck. I don't know what, there's too many letters there, but
there is.
I mean, what was the reaction from you guys who are in the building? Like you don't have the benefit of watching it on TV.
Well, to be honest, I didn't initially realize he'd lost his mask. I mean, I saw him down, but I didn't realize, like in the first few seconds, that he actually was maskless. And, we can't obviously interview the officials. It would be nice. That would be a perfect example of a game where you'd love to have a pool reporter who could talk to the referee and kind of find out what was going through their mind. But I do wonder, a little part of me wonders if the officials, if they noticed immediately that his mask was off. Certainly we all saw him in a crumpled heap, and in real time, I must admit, I didn't see the Morrissey sort of shove of Ben. It looked more to me like Ben steamrolled Hellebuyck, and I must admit, on seeing the replay, I don't have an issue with the way that was called in terms of the goaltender interference, because I would concede, and I think the Jets would as well. Josh Morrissey did, Connor Hellebuyck did, that there was a push by Morrissey of Ben. Now, did Jamie Benn sell it? Jamie Benn's a big boy. Did he accidentally on purpose at that point fall into Connor Hellebuyck? Maybe. But if we're going just strictly by goaltender interference, I get why they may have ruled what they did. What I don't understand and continue to not understand is why the officials allowed that play to continue. You had a goalie who clearly got bumped. I mean, that was obvious, who was down and out. and in fact motionless to the point that you wonder if he was seriously injured. Even if the refs didn't realize in the initial second or two that he didn't have his mask, the fact that they would allow play to continue like they did, I get that the Jets didn't have possession, but he got hit in the head and he's down on the ice. And then when it should have become clear that he didn't have the mask, like the whole idea that that was an imminent scoring chance, I think Connor Hellebuyck really eloquently explained it to us the other day in Chicago, and he's bang on. Jamie Benn, who had the puck when Connor Hellebuyck got knocked down, didn't even get an assist on the goal because so many other Dallas players touched the puck before Jason Robertson fired it into the empty net. If that's an imminent scoring chance, wouldn't Jamie Benn have got an assist, if not the goal himself, since he's right there? That just shows you the passage of time. And the refs blew it. They absolutely blew it by not blowing it down. And I guess the problem is, as Connor Hellebuyck sort of pointed out the other day, there is not a rule, or there's not a way for the situation room to kind of fix the error in judgment that clearly took place there. They could only look at it for goalie interference, and I get why they made the ruling they did. They can't go back and say, you should have blown that play dead because the goalie didn't have his mask, was out of the play. You can't allow that to continue. I suspect the NHL feels that way, but there's no mechanism as of right now to fix that. And that's why Connor Hellebuyck is saying the rule needs to change. There needs to be a way for the situation room to see what happened, and the officials as well, and say, we got to reverse the wrong here. But, you know, I guess if you're going by the letter of the law as it's written right now, it was a judgment call. It was terrible judgment. And might I add, Remo, those officials exercised terrible judgment all game long. I had tweeted, forget the Hellebuyck thing, I had tweeted earlier in the game that those guys were constantly in poor position all night. I haven't seen two referees get in the way of so many pucks as those two did that night. You know, usually the refs, they do a tremendous job of getting out of the way. And okay, maybe you want to chalk it up to terrible luck. Maybe it was just the worst luck imaginable that these guys were constantly in the way of pucks being dumped in. But then comes the first Robertson goal that wasn't a goal, where the puck clearly hit the netting, and we all saw it. Everybody saw it, except I guess Jason Robertson fired it into the net. Although in his case, he probably just thought, well, if they're not going to blow it down, I guess I'll keep playing. And the four officials who somehow all missed it in real time then conversed with each other and still missed it. Those guys were so badly out of position all night long. And I'll end with this, Remo. I mean, one ref, Garrett Rank, he's been in the league quite a while. He's a very well-known Canadian amateur golfer, very good golfer, amateur. But his refereeing, he's got 8 total playoff games on his resume. Usually at the end of the year, he's not on the list of officials that get playoff assignments. And that's probably because he doesn't score very well during the season compared to his peers. The other ref the other night was a rookie doing like his 8th or 9th game ever. So that was not a good night for the Stripes for a number of reasons. And the Hellebuyck thing was just kind of the icing on the crap Sunday, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with you. The rule says, I tweeted out, if there's no immediate and impending scoring opportunity, the play, that's when you stop the play. And it seemed like after the wraparound, it wasn't impending and immediate. And you'd like to think that Hellebuyck, you know, if he was able to get up, he would have gone and saved that, you know, the Robertson. I know Robertson's got a good shot. He scored a nice one last night, but that was going to be right at his chest.
Well, and, you know, all I can think is that if Connor Hellebuyck had sprung back up, I really hope the play would have been blown dead. Like at that point, would they really have allowed him to stand in there without a mask? But if you're Connor Hellebuyck, are you taking that chance? Are you really going to stand up and expose your face?
No.
And imagine the questions the NHL would have to answer if Jason Robertson had ripped that shot off Connor Hellebuyck's temple, you know, rather than put it in the net. Like this, that could have got really ugly really fast. And I think that's why, this is not just sour grapes on the part of the Jets. Hey, they ended up winning the game. They got the 2 points. Yeah, Dallas got a point that you could argue they didn't deserve. But this is a safety issue. And as rare as sort of what happened was, the NHL's got to make sure that this can't happen again, that there's a mechanism in place to kind of fix this. And we'll see what happens. I mean, it sounds like the Jets have company in terms of other GMs and teams who share their concern. Like I said, this is not them whining for no reason. They have a legitimate beef. Connor Hellebuyck's on the competition committee. He says he's going to bring it up. Adam Lowry is the NHLPA rep. He says he's going to bring it up. I suspect we probably will see some amendments or new tweaks, if you will, introduced at some point in time.
Yeah, moving on from the road trip, the Jets 20 games in, quarter of the season, everyone's doing their retrospective. It's funny, my comment, I don't know if you were on when I hosted in the summer for Hustler, but my comment was to everyone, is this it? Like, is the Jets, this is it? Now my comment is, like, what? Or is, how did they get here? The best points percentage in their division, and is it for real? If you want to start, how are they doing this, Mike? Like, what have you seen here after 20 games?
Yeah, I mean, I see a sustainable style of play and a sustainable path to success. I mean, yeah, there's been a couple games where you could say that, they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, and that game in Vegas that they had no business even being in, and they got a point. The game in LA probably, that was grand theft to get 2 points out of that. But hey, your goalie's part of the team, and Connor Hellebuyck has been tremendous this year. So for those who say, well, they won some games only because they're goaltending, they didn't play well. Well, you know what? Your goalie's part of your team. And the Jets have one of the best, if not the best, and he's playing like it. So I don't see the Jets as there's not a whole lot of games where I can say, man, they were really lucky to get out of that. Like, I think they deserve the record they have. And the fact that they have the record they have with, 3 of their top 9 forwards on opening night, all having undergone surgery within the first month. Morgan Barron's back now, but he's missed 10 of the first 20. Nikolai Ehlers has missed 18 out of 20. And his replacement on the top line, Mason Appleton's missed a bunch of games now and is going to miss a ton more. Again, going back to, guys playing, Yelby wasn't even on the radar until the last day of camp when they plucked him off the waiver wire. Like, he's up there on the top line, and Asimont, working his tail off. Even, Jansen Harkins scored 2 games in a row. Cononado steps in the other day, gets an assist. Sam Gagner, I know he was a healthy scratch, but he's got 7 points. But the other takeaway to me here, Remo, is that the Jets stars, their best and highest paid players, by and large, they are producing. It starts with Hellebuyck, who we just talked about. Josh Morrissey, or Josh Norrissey, as they're calling him, is a legitimate Norris Trophy candidate a quarter of the way into the season. He's got 23 points. He's going to obliterate his career highs. And he's a true number 1 now on this team, something that a lot of folks wondered if the Jets could ever have again after guys like Bufflin and Trouba left town. The Jets, Kyle Connor had a very slow start. He's got 6 goals in 6 games. He's almost on a 40-goal pace. Scheifele and Dubois are on 40-goal paces. The Jets could have 3 40-goal scorers by the time the season's done. Blake Wheeler's got 16 points. And, all the questions about what would losing the captaincy, what kind of player were we going to get? Well, I think they've been answered. Blake Wheeler looks like a guy who's got a new lease on life. He's enjoying, obviously what's happening with the team. His passing remains elite. Yeah, other parts of his game have taken a hit. But to going back to your original question, I see a Jets team that this is sustainable. They are buying what Rick Bowness is selling. And I go back to something that Kevin Cheveldayoff said, during camp, where we asked kind of the same question you just did, Remo, like, is that it? Where's all the moves? And Kevin Cheveldayoff, and I think a lot of people kind of laughed when he gave his answer, said there was one seismic change made to this team. And that was the way he described it, seismic. And that was bringing Rick Bowness on board, who wasn't even their top choice. We know that. Barry Trotz was. But my goodness, Rick Bowness, to his credit, he's got this group playing the way he talked about getting them to play. And, it starts in their own end. The Jets have only given up 53 goals in 20 games. I think they're fifth best in the NHL in goals against. But they're not sacrificing offense. They're still scoring a ton because all the lines are playing the same way. And they realize that, good defense can lead to good offense. So I think it's sustainable. And as they start to maybe get a little more healthy, obviously Ehlers and Appleton are still a ways off, but those are almost going to feel like trade deadline additions, especially Ehlers, when they get him back sometime in the new year. And to their credit, the Jets are beating the teams that they should be beating. And they're certainly hanging tough against really strong teams. And they're going to get another, obviously, big test tonight as they open the homestand.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're seeing career years. I listed off the top: Scheifele in goals, Dubois having a great season, Morrissey, Kyle Connor after the slow start. He's picked it up, and you're getting contributions from throughout the lineup, plus elite goaltending. And it's funny, when the Oilers win yesterday and Connor McDavid has 3 points, no one goes, "Hey, the Oilers." Well, yeah, but they only had McDavid, right. And no one's saying that. So Hellebuyck, he's part of the team, and he's definitely stolen some games this year, helped them get a point when they absolutely should not have, like that Vegas game. I don't think I'll forget that one.
Yeah.
One player returned from injury on the weekend on Sunday, Morgan Barron, and he got quietly 5 points in 10 games, contributing when he was playing with Lowry and Appleton. But he was hurt, but he's going to be on the top line tonight with Dubois and Connor reunited. What do you think? What do you make of this line being put together and reuniting Dubois and Connor as well?
Well, look, we know Rick Bowness is a big fan of Morgan Barron. The story's out there that they golfed together last summer in Halifax. They both live in the Halifax area in the off season. They golfed together, and Rick Bowness told Morgan Barron, basically said, "You're going to be on my third line." Morgan Barron's kind of had a rough start to his season. He got hurt in training camp and kind of missed most of the preseason. And then, of course, got that broken bone in his wrist that required surgery and cost him 10 games. But Morgan Barron, brings some things to the lineup that the Jets don't have a whole lot of. Obviously, size, strength. I mean, they have guys like Dubois and Lowry and Blake Wheeler, is a big man, and even Saku Manalainen now has some size. But Morgan Barron, is a big, strong, young skater that certainly has tremendous upside. And he was a big part of that Andrew Kopp trade, and the Jets really liked what they saw from him late last season down the stretch. And certainly the way he came back, they eased him into the lineup on Sunday in Chicago, started on the fourth line. I think they wanted to, they obviously wanted to let him kind of get integrated. He hadn't practiced a whole lot. Only had, I think, one practice in a full kind of non-contact type situation. So I think with Morgan Barron now, they've seen enough to say, hey, let's bump him up. Let's see what he can do. And, that's we know Dubois and Connor have some real chemistry. Adding Morgan Barron on that line, I'm really curious to see what that looks like, because that's, between Dubois and Barron, that's those are two big men, and it should create, maybe some additional space for a Kyle Connor. And so, it's got some potential, no question about it. And that leaves Scheifele and Wheeler. And I know some people say, "Oh my goodness, Scheifele and Wheeler back together again." Well, they haven't played together a whole lot in the last couple seasons. But one thing, without question, Remo, they have tremendous chemistry. I'm sure everybody saw the pass Blake Wheeler made to Mark Scheifele the other day, sort of the no-look special. Like, that's a pass very few players can make. And it was almost instinctive for Blake Wheeler. And I thought Cole Perfetti, who kind of had a rough patch there for a while, I really liked, his last couple games. And I think it's a nice mix with Scheifele and Wheeler and Cole Perfetti together. So, yeah, you'd love to have Nikolai Ehlers in the lineup, but you know what? He's not going to be in the lineup for another couple months. Morgan Barron now, adds some additional depth to the team. And I'm really anxious to kind of see what he looks like. I think Sam Gagner did a pretty good job in that role at times. But one thing about Gagner, he just doesn't have the speed necessarily to be playing in the top six. I think Sam Gagner is a really nice bottom six add. I know he's going to be a healthy scratch again tonight. That's not so much about Gagner. I think it's what other guys are doing right now. But I'm really anxious to see Morgan Barron. Big opportunity for the young man. And, let's see how that line looks.
Yeah, this Perfetti, Shafley, Wheeler line, very interesting too. Everything you mentioned, Wheeler quietly 16 points in 20 games and still has that elite vision and elite passing. And Cole Perfetti, I know a lot's being asked of him this year as a rookie, but he's, fifth in rookie scoring with 11 points in 20 games. And those guys have definitely been contributing. Looking at the defense, Dylan DeMello, he was hurt, but then he came back. The one player who's been out for a while, Logan Stanley, he skated today after not traveling with the team, but sounds like he's not going to be back too soon. But when he is back, team's going to have to make some big decisions, aren't they?
Well, they are. And, if you look at the forward group right now, like the scratches tonight, it looks like it's going to be Toninato and Gagner, because David Gustafsson, who missed the other night, he's going to be back in the lineup tonight. They're not putting Sam Gagner on waivers. Toninato, I think he'd have to go on waivers again here shortly. He did pass through out of training camp. There's that sort of time limit, though, once you're up for a certain amount of time. Same with guys like Harkins, Asimont, and if Mikey Asimont keeps playing the way he's playing, not only do I not expect him to go back to the Manitoba Moose, I don't expect him to come out of the lineup. I think Rick Bowness loves what Mikey has brought to this team, the tenacious forecheck. He's got his first goal last week. He got his first 2 assists, had his first NHL fight. Like, he does a lot of things. There's some Brandon Tanev type elements to Mikey Asimont there that I think are really tantalizing for the Jets. So, yeah, the one option, I suppose, when Logan Stanley's back and healthy, maybe the Jets actually keep 14 forwards up here, 2 extras, and maybe a guy like Kyle Capobianco is the one that gets put on waivers, because, Logan Stanley coming back, barring injury, I don't see how Logan Stanley necessarily gets in the lineup. I think Dylan Sandberg's been extremely solid here lately. So if Logan Stanley's your 7th defenseman, then Kyle Capobianco's your 8th. And are you going to risk losing a forward on waivers versus Capobianco? I don't know the answer to that. We know the Jets didn't want to lose Capobianco because they waived Jonathan Kovacevic over him out of training camp. So, things can change, of course, between now and whenever Logan Stanley is healthy. You could get another injury or 2 or 3. And, with Logan Stanley, he's coming off a broken bone in his foot. Obviously, skating isn't Logan Stanley's strength to begin with. And so I don't think the Jets are going to rush him back. They're going to want to take their time as he kind of, with obviously that foot injury, he hasn't been able to skate a whole lot. It's not like a wrist injury where you could maybe get back on the ice and get your cardio up. So they'll take their time with Logan Stanley, but for sure, if everybody can stay healthy, an interesting roster decision is certainly on the horizon.
Kind of funny. I don't know if it's actually funny, but Logan Stanley, because they're playing so well, as you said, you can take that time and make sure that he's okay, and we'll have to wait and see. But I think it's funny. We can talk about the decision that they're going to have to make when he comes back, because we need something to talk about. But you're right. I mean, the injuries could happen. We'll have to wait and see. But it is fun to sit here and speculate, and that's what we do best here on Winnipeg.
Absolutely.
On Winnipeg Sports Talk. One player in the news this week, Josh Morrissey, 2nd star of the week. You've watched Josh for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you seeing from him this year, and especially over the last week, compared to previous seasons? Because, I mean, you gave credit to Rick Bowness in giving him this belief that he could be a top 10 defenseman. And as you said, he certainly is. He's 4th in defenseman scoring right now. But how has his game changed from what you've seen in the past?
Well, he's always been a great skater, but we know, there's been times when Josh Morrissey's not 100%. He plays obviously a fearless style. He kills penalties, blocks shots, very physical player at times. And I think he would say he's probably fully healthy, feels great. He's moving as well as, I mean, look at that overtime winner in Dallas the other night. Jason Robertson is not a slow player. And Josh Morrissey, not only made up ground on Jason Robertson, he blew by him to score that overtime winner. And those guys had been on the ice the same amount of time. I know a forward, Robertson, he would have skated a little more on the shift than Morrissey would have. But, so he's moving, first and foremost, he's moving so well out there this year. But I think secondly, like the systems that Rick Bowness has brought in and the green light that he's given his defensemen, that's just instilled some extra confidence in a guy like Josh Morrissey, because he now knows that he can maybe take risks that he wouldn't have otherwise taken in the past, because the Jets didn't have a real cohesive system in place where he knew that others would be covering for him. We've seen it time and time again, and again, it goes to all lines. I've lost track of how many times this year I've looked and Mark Scheifele's the first guy back, and you're like, wow, that's a play Mark Scheifele normally wouldn't have made. But credit to him. Rick Bowness is kind of holding everyone's feet to the fire. And he really does, the saying that he wants all these lines to play the same way, even though there's a difference in talent, obviously, on the lines. I think we are seeing that. And so there's a confidence for Josh Morrissey. This system is kind of perfectly suited to his strengths. And, the Jets have really tapped into that. A team that had, 24 total goals last year from their defensemen. They have 10 already through 20 games. They're on pace for 41. They would blow away, and Rick Bowness, one of the first things he came in and said on the first day of training camp, you could tell that was bothering him. He's like, we only had 24 goals last year. We're going to change that. The D are coming, he pronounced. Well, they have been coming, and right at the top of that list, of course, is Josh Morrissey.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. Neil Pionk, I think he's got more goals this year than the last two combined, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Josh Morrissey smashing, and he's an assist. He's assist per game right now, just about 0.95. That's more than double his previous career high of per game assists. You talk about Rick Bowness coming in, changing up the defense. I have to ask you, Mike, are you keeping an eye on what's going on with the Florida Panthers? Because I'm seeing a lot of people in chat coming in, commenting on their loss, their back-to-back overtime losses. It was a theme for the Jets last year, and we will be seeing the Panthers a week from today, actually.
1 week, yeah.
So big homecoming there. I don't know. Are you keeping an eye on that?
I am indeed. And there's a lot of unhappy Panthers fans. Look, I mean, it was a great gig for Paul Maurice to land, but a bit of an unenviable one in the sense that you're taking over a team that just won the President's Trophy. They were the best team in the league during the regular season last year, and they canned their coach. That was deemed not good enough. So you talk about the bar being set extremely high. And so here they are now, a quarter of the way into their season, and they're basically a 500 team, and they're below the playoff line. And Paul Maurice is certainly hearing it and feeling it from, I assume just like most fan bases, on social media, on Twitter, it's probably the vocal minority, the very vocal minority. But yeah, there's a lot of things happening in Florida. And I think, part of the team he inherited, Bill Zito made a number of changes, obviously, to that roster. Their blue line isn't nearly as strong as it was last season. Mackenzie Weegar obviously gets traded as part of the Tkachuk Kubadro trade. So, they've got some challenges, and it'll be interesting, Remo, by the time they come to town here a week from tonight, that's their fifth game on a lengthy road trip that started last night in Edmonton. I think they play tonight in Calgary, then they're in Vancouver, then they're in Seattle, and then they finish it off in Winnipeg. That's four more tough games ahead of them, like Calgary tonight on a back-to-back. Seattle's playing tremendous hockey right now. Vancouver's really picked it up as of late. It'll be fascinating to see what happens between now and next Tuesday. That could be a desperate Florida team limping into town, if things don't go well over these next few games. So certainly worth keeping an eye on. But a tough start so far for Paul Maurice and Jamie Compon as well down in Florida.
Yeah, a lot of people asking in chat about Andrew Brunette, who coached them last year filled in for Joel Quenneville. He's with New Jersey right now.
I hear they're pretty good.
Yeah, one of the hottest teams in the league. And I did mention off the top this Florida road trip. They got the back-to-back tonight, and this road trip, as you said, 5 games across 3 different time zones. So we'll see how they can adjust Tuesday. I'm sure there'll be a big video tribute as we count down to that. And I have to, before we go, mention the football team Blue Bombers announcing Willie Jefferson before Adam Bighill, but still waiting on Mike O'Shea. You think this gets done? You have to imagine these guys, they're not going to sign these long-term deals if, I don't want to call him the architect, Kyle Walters, but one of the big leaders of the team isn't back.
Agreed 100%. And I go back to Zach Collaros signing his extension. I don't know if Zach Collaros signs that contract if he has questions about who his coach is going to be, going forward. So, we heard from Mike O'Shea, during the Grey Cup and now after the Grey Cup. And I'm not surprised he's kind of taking the approach he is. This is a guy that doesn't want to be in the spotlight or the limelight. He's a player's coach and he puts his players first. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing, some player announcements here happen before we get the inevitable, what I think is going to be inevitable extension for Mike O'Shea. And, if anything, the way the Grey Cup went and, lose by a point, that probably stokes the fire even more for Mike O'Shea and the Bomber Corps, who, no doubt feel that they still have another championship or 2 or 3 in them. And so, I suspect we'll get that announcement here in relative short order, but they're probably getting some of the big player announcements out of the way first.
I'm sure there'll be people celebrating. We know they can definitely go back and hopefully return to the Grey Cup next year. So I still can't believe he said that he didn't even think about his contract. That's something I would be thinking about all the time. But he literally, when he says, he's a 1 game at a time kind of guy, that it seems like that's not a cliche with him. He literally is just focused on the task at hand and long-term view. Maybe he'll look at, I'm sure it's there in the background, but I actually believe him when he says he didn't think about it, which sounds crazy.
I do too. And I think that's the mindset. Just like we heard the Bombers, they always talked about, we want to go 1-0 this week, right? They were never thinking of the big picture. And I think, Mike O'Shea, he's comfortable in his own skin. Like he knows his worth. He knows his value. I think the relationship he has with the Bomber organization, it's maybe not the traditional, coach manager. Like he's such an integral voice. He can kind of write his own ticket. And so I just think the way that whole dynamic works within the organization, that he's not worried, they're not worried. And I think time will sort of show that there was good reason for nobody to really be overly concerned about any time that it's taking here.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time here talking Jets ahead of tonight's big match, litmus tests, measuring stick, all that against the Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. I hope we'll catch up with you next weekend. A lot of people asking about Piper in the chat. It's not a Mike McIntyre appearance without Piper talk. That is your dog.
So I'm down here in the basement office. Piper is just having her and her big brother just had a great snowy fight in the backyard, and now they're just snoozing. So I can't bring her on camera today because she's on another floor of the house, and I don't want to wake her up. But Piper is definitely a highlight for sure. She's a ball of energy, that's for sure. And I'm sure she'll be back on the Winnipeg Sports Talk here sooner than later.
All right, fan favorite, that Piper. Thanks again, Mike. We'll catch up next week. Appreciate it.
You bet. Enjoy the week. Take care.
Thanks. It's Mike McIntyre, Winnipeg Free Press. Check him out in the Free Press or follow him at Mike McIntyre WPG. I got another guest coming up. We're going to touch on the visiting Colorado Avalanche with their play-by-play voice, Conor McGahey. But here first, Huss got a couple words, then we'll be right back.
Have to thank Princess Auto for their phenomenal support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And of course, Bomber fans know Princess Auto was there for the blue and gold all year long and setting up the best pregame atmosphere in the Canadian Football League at the Princess Auto Tailgate Zone. Cannot wait to get back there next June. Of course, we'll be working with Princess Auto throughout the year, as well as focusing on some of the top curlers in the country and in the world right here from Manitoba, many of them on Team Princess Auto. And of course, Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best assortment and value of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And also, I mean, hey, we're getting into the holidays, and then we're talking about drinks and entertaining. Hey, one thing that everybody needs, water and water services. And the family-owned gang at Culligan have been the water experts for over 60 years here in the city and province. And they really do have everything. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, drinking full home systems, drinking water systems, and of course, those jugs with the Culligan men taking them out to you anywhere in the city and surrounding area. Whatever your water needs, Culligan's got you covered. 1200 Sargent Avenue. You can give them a call at 694-5180 or check out what Culligan's got going online at drinkculligan.com. And well, it's very dry here, both in the air and in the social areas. It certainly won't be as we get into the holidays, and when you're entertaining and looking for the best Canadian whiskey, everyone knows Canada's favorite is Canadian Club. Not only a great sponsor of us, but also the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and what a great season that was, and great to see so many people enjoying the Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, which was an incredibly popular select at Bomber games this season. But hey, just because the Bomber season's over doesn't mean you can't pick it up. CC and Ginger available in 6-packs at your local beer store, and pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts for all the great products from the Canadian Club family. Canadian Club, give them a follow on Instagram as well, and shout out to everyone that sent us pictures of them enjoying the CC and Ginger throughout the Bombers season.
All right, thank you so much, Huss. Gives me a bit of a break here, letting him take care of those. He's in Qatar at the World Cup, taking in Team USA right now at the whatever stadium it's called. Anyways, we're continuing with tonight's game, Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche. Happy to bring in play-by-play voice, Conor McGahey. Conor, welcome to Winnipeg. Thank you so much for coming on. Not too cold here for you for a late November visit, right? You guys also have snow in Denver, so
it's colder back home right now.
Oh, really?
Here, yeah, 100%. It's a snow globe back in Denver right now, and under 20 Fahrenheit. So this is nice today. This is nice.
Oh, very good. Well, we got a great divisional matchup tonight. I think this Jets Avalanche, I don't want to call it a rivalry, but they're in the same division. These games, we had a great one earlier this year in Denver. But let's talk about the Avalanche season. We're assessing everyone after 20 games. How has it gone so far for the defending Cup champion Colorado Avalanche?
Well, because of the trip to Finland and just how the schedule worked out, we're the last team, Colorado is, to the 20-game mark, the unofficial quarter mark of the season. And believe it or not, the Avalanche are a game better right now than they were the last 2 seasons. A season where they won the President's Trophy 2 years ago, and then obviously last year winning the Stanley Cup. So at 12-6-1, they're actually a game better than their pace from last year. Another slow start. Started out 4-4-1 this year. We've been able to find some traction despite the fact that they don't have, the list of injuries, Michael, might take up the whole show. So we'll just say that we have at least a good starting 5 out, including Landeskog, Nichushkin, Bo Byram. They will not play tonight, but there is some newsworthy things. Alex Galchenyuk signed a 2-way deal with the Avalanche yesterday. He'll make his Colorado debut tonight. Jean-Luc Foudy, younger brother of Liam Foudy of Columbus, who the Winnipeg Jets will see on Friday, will make his NHL debut tonight. So the Avalanche have just found a way to make it happen. A lot of that has been on the shoulders, don't get me wrong, of Cale Makar, of Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen. But if you're able to survive long enough, the results tend to come your way. And the Avalanche have been playing decent enough hockey. They beat the number 1 team in the division, Dallas Stars, twice this week. So but this is going to be tough tonight. The Avalanche do not play well here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, the Jets have also beat Dallas twice this season too. A controversial win on Friday. Dallas, they're pretty good, but you mentioned the injury list, and I was looking at this team, the turnover, and you look at the line, you're like, who are after the top line? You're kind of like, who are some of these guys? You had in the offseason Burakovsky and Kadri. They move on in free agency, but right now Landeskog hurt, Nichushkin hurt, Helm, and Bowen Byram, and Evan Rodriguez. He got hurt on the weekend. He's going to be out. Who's stepped up while all these guys are out below the top line of Lehkonen, MacKinnon, and Rantanen.
Yeah, and Lehkonen needs some credit. You're right. He's got a 9-game point streak, which is a team long this year, career high for him as well. But as far as stepping in to fill some gaps, I think that Alex Newhook, who felt a lot of pressure early on because with Nazem Kadri signing with the Calgary Flames, the conversation around the team and around town was who's going to be the new second-line center. JT Compher was an option. Rodriguez was another option coming over, signing a one-year deal from the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Alex Newhook was also thrown in there, taking one pick after Cole Caulfield in that 2019 draft. So I think that the pressure got to him early, maybe a little bit, but he's been able to find some footing and step up. There's actually going to be, we'll call it the new line tonight, because you have Newhook, and then you have Jean-Luc Foudy on one side in his first NHL game, and you have Alex Galchenyuk, another new member of the Avalanche, on the other side tonight. So there's been contributions in different ways, but if we're talking offensively, Alex Newhook has started to be that guy for Colorado.
Yeah, you look around the lineup, a lot of new faces, I'll say. And you talk about Alex Galchenyuk. They just signed him yesterday. Are they hoping they can kind of, he's a former top pick. Are they hoping they can, revitalize his career like they did with Val Nichushkin, who, was a top pick and then had that breakout season last year and earned the big contract? What are they hoping for from Alex Galchenyuk?
Well, it's always good to have a guy who scored 30 goals in an NHL season on your roster, no matter how many teams he's played on. He started the year as a PTO for the Avalanche, didn't have a contract with anybody else coming in. This is the second year in a row where the Avalanche tried the PTO route, last year with Jack Johnson, who ended up signing. And this year, I think the plan was going to be the exact same. Galchenyuk plays the first preseason game of the year in Minnesota, gets hurt, has to be released from his PTO, and then came back to play with the Colorado Eagles of the AHL, signed an AHL-only contract, and then by the time he got his sea legs underneath him, it was finally time to sign that NHL deal yesterday. Again, a two-way, one-year deal with the Avalanche. But as you mentioned, with all the injuries, there's not a ton of NHL, I don't want to say ready, but caliber forwards on this roster. And I think that's where Galchenyuk can just slot in. He's going to be on the second unit power play tonight. And Jared Bednar is saying this morning that he's going to put him in a position to be successful. This is a guy who can score, a guy who knows the league. And frankly, Colorado needs NHL caliber forwards. And like you said, they've had a reputation for being able to do that. I think Jared Bednar's system of play, Greg Cronin's system of play down with the Eagles in the AHL, they're the exact same, which is why those transitions are so easy for guys going back and forth. But for Galchenyuk, I think it's a group and a system that will give him a lot of confidence, and he's going to be able to contribute here with Colorado.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing. One thing about Colorado is when you're the defending Cup champion, you can pretty much say to any free agent, hey, come play here, you'll have fun. We were hoping Evan Rodriguez was going to sign here in the offseason, but how could you resist the chance for chasing a cup? And he was fitting in pretty well until he got hurt. One player I have to talk about, Cale Makar, became the fastest defenseman ever for 200 points. How much fun is it to watch this guy play every day in the NHL? It's got to be a blast.
It's silly, Michael. It really is, because he keeps being associated with the great names. When you're talking about Orr, when you're talking about Lidstrom, when you're talking about Paul Coffey, when you're talking about Brian Leetch. It seems like every single game he's in the conversation of what record is he tying, what record is he breaking. And at some point, defensemen of the future are going to be compared to Cale Makar. He's one of the all-time greats. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that right now with the type of production that he's got. You could even look at his resume from last year where he wins the Norris, he wins the Conn Smythe, he wins the Stanley Cup. He's won a Calder before. So I think for him and his recognition, it's not going to be in the trophy case anymore, although all those other ones don't matter. There's just the big one that has mattered to him. So if he stacks those up, that will mean a lot more to him than any other personal accolades that he gets. But it's on his ice play. Last year he's starts averaging 20 minutes a game, and now close to a half hour per game. You're talking about Drew Doughty, Brent Burns type minutes, Erik Karlsson type minutes for Cale Makar. And I just think that we are so spoiled on a nightly basis that we get to watch that because his creativity is so good. His control is so good. He sees the game differently than anybody else. And that's really a sight to behold on a nightly basis.
Yeah, one thing I love, when you're watching all the games is tuning in and watching this Avalanche power play, Makar, MacKinnon, Rantanen, watching them move the puck around. It's incredible. But one thing, we talk about the injuries on forward, and I think they haven't had the injuries really on defense. You mentioned Byron, but most of them are still there. And when you have Cale Makar playing 30 minutes a game, it seems to mitigate a lot of the losses they've had on forward.
Right. And when him and Devon Taves, who have been defensive partners now for 3 years, are out there together, it's almost like having 5 forwards on the ice at the same time. And that's sort of been the modus operandi for the Avalanche for years now, is that your defenseman can activate at any time. And that makes it extremely hard to defend. Look at Josh Manson last game, for example. When you think of Josh Manson, his dad, Dave, obviously played here in Winnipeg back in the 90s. But when you think of Josh Manson, you don't exactly think of him as an offensive type guy, somebody who is leading the rush attack. But he has a goal and an assist last game. He's up in the attack. He's charging towards the net. That's where he got his goal. And that's sort of how the Avalanche operate. You don't have to be a Cale Makar or a Devon Taves or a Bo Byram to be able to attack. Eric Johnson, if you go back to the playoffs last year in Game 6 versus the St. Louis Blues, it was his play and his charge of the boards that set Darren Helm up for the game winner in Game 6 to eliminate the Blues with under 6 seconds to go in the third period. So the defensemen acting like forwards is not just reserved for the Cale Makars and Devon Taves. It's really the whole defensive core as a group. And that's, I think, what makes the Avalanche be able to distribute the weight evenly, especially when forwards are missing out of the lineup.
Yeah, one thing in defense, if you have good defense, it helps the goaltending. And I think that's kind of why they felt like they could move on from Darcy Kemper. Tough, winning the Stanley Cup, tough decision. Who's going to be in net tonight? And how has the goaltending tandem with Georgiev and Francouz been this year?
Well, it appears to be Georgiev. He was the first off the ice at morning skate this morning. And the two of them, you're talking Jennings Trophy. If it were awarded right now, they'd be in the conversation between him and Pavel Francouz. Georgiev's save percentage, second best in the National Hockey League. He's up there in wins, but he's come over, and he was meant to be a starting netminder. Remember, he was the heir apparent to Henrik Lundqvist in New York before they, I don't want to say stumbled into Igor Shesterkin, but they did. And so Georgiev needed to be a starting netminder in the National Hockey League. So former teammates and now current general managers in the National Hockey League, Joe Sakic and Chris Drury, are able to do a deal and get Georgiev here. And he's been better than Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper played great last year, don't get me wrong, but he didn't have to necessarily save games. And the Avalanche were so good with their 72 combined wins between the regular season and the postseason, one of the best teams in NHL history, that he didn't have to be Patrick Waugh winning the Conn Smythe in 2001, even though that team that won the Cup for Colorado was just as good. He didn't have to be winning a Vezina and winning a Stanley Cup in the same season. It's amazing how many times that actually is not the case. But Georgiev, with his style of play, is just almost calming. And Pavel Francouz, with his personality, that translates into his goaltending style. It's not a swimmy all over the place type goaltending. It's very structured and smart and anticipatory. And frankly, the goaltending tandem, which costs the same amount as Darcy Kemper, by the way, both goalies make the exact same amount that Darcy Kemper is making for 1 year in Washington, have been, I would say, better than expected. But I think that everybody knew, with the confidence that Georgiev had coming over here, that he was going to be the number one and he was going to basically have a start like he's had so far this season.
Yeah, before we go, we haven't even touched on Nathan MacKinnon. He's having an exceptional season, 28 points in 19 games. Signed the big contract extension in the offseason, 8 years, $100 million. Anything change in this guy after the big dollars, or is he still going? And you hear about how competitive he is and how he demands that from his teammates. Any changes in Nathan MacKinnon since the big contract?
One of the best things about Nathan MacKinnon, Michael, is that fire will never go out, ever. And it probably gets hotter and hotter as you go along. I remember at the beginning of the season, everybody was asking about him about the opening night, the banner going up, and the Stanley Cup rings all happening in the same week. And he had a great quote. He said, "I'm kind of over this whole Stanley Cup thing," meaning he didn't want to focus on the one that they had just won. He wanted to focus on the task at hand and ahead and to go get another one. And MacKinnon has really teed himself up. He's one of the best playmakers in the game, one of the leaders in assists in the National Hockey League. But at some point, because he's fourth in the league in shots now, that puck's going to start to go in. But again, he's just him and Eric Johnson are tied for the team lead at plus minus. His defensive game is a lot better. But the good part about Nathan MacKinnon is that competitive fire only gets hotter and hotter as time goes along.
Well, Connor, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Enjoy the game tonight and have a great call. Should be a great divisional matchup between two teams near the top of the standings.
Looking forward to it. One of my favorite buildings in the league. It'll be fun.
All right. Well, thanks again. Hopefully we can touch base later on this season.
Hope so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There he is, Conor McGahey, play-by-play voice for the Avalanche. Follow him on Twitter, Conor McGahey. The link is in the description. Wow, it's really flown by. What a show. We got 272 people in chat. I don't know if people came in here and saw me and left, but those who are here, thank you for hanging out. We're talking Jets, Avs, NHL at the quarter season, and sprinkled in, we've had a couple Bombers talk as Adam Bighill signing the 2-year deal, which had some guaranteed money there as well. If you are enjoying the show so far, please hit the thumbs up. See Phyllis, shout out to Phyllis in chat, trying to get everyone to 200 likes. I know we've got a couple more subs. Hit that red subscribe button. Just tells YouTube, hey, we're putting out good content. And the best way we can bring more viewers is for YouTube to recommend our content to people who might have similar interests. So again, thank you everyone for coming. We'll have some Rick Bowness notes from the post-game or post-morning skate press conference. Hustlers, he's got a couple things to say, and then I'll pop in. We'll go over the cool bet lines and wrap up the show. Thanks, everyone. Stick around.
You have to thank Nick and Nikki DQ for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hey, 12 months a year, the Blizzard is always the most elite treat when it comes to ice cream. All those great Blizzard flavors, including new ones coming all the time, are great. What you might not have tried is the incredible stack burgers. And if you haven't, what are you waiting for? DQ's always been a sleeper when it comes to some of the best food in the fast food game. And the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs are ready to serve you. DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And hey, with the holidays coming up, parties, gatherings, and more, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. They'll custom make the famous DQ ice cream cake however you like. And get it ready for you for a quick and easy pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. And as I mentioned earlier, pretty dry here. They were selling Bud Zero in the Fan Fest today, and I think that'll be the same case at the game tomorrow. So even more, I'm missing and appreciating the great support we have and the great product we have from Winnipeg's favorite local beer, Little Brown Jug. If you're getting ready for the game tomorrow, maybe taking the afternoon off for a hell of a sports day with Canada-Belgium at 1 and then Jets-Wild at 6, take it to the next level and make it perfect with a case of 1919 or some of your other Little Brown Jug favorites. You can pop by, pick up Little Brown Jug at the brewery and tap room. Try them all, heck, down in William Avenue. Check out the great merchandise as well with the holidays around the corner. And, of course, you can get the great taste of Little Brown Jug at your local beer store as well. And fine restaurants and bars will have Little Brown Jug 1919 on tap. Keep an eye out for that. And, of course, littlebrownjug.ca for a citywide delivery as well. Every time you watch the National Football League at Boston Pizza, you'll have a chance to win their second grand prize of an incredible trip for 2 weekend in Vegas, including airfare, hotel, tickets to see the Raiders and 49ers, and the night before on New Year's Eve, Golden Knights and St. Louis Blues. Not to mention pizza flights, $5 beer specials. Always a great spot to watch the National Football League, and no better place to watch the Winnipeg Jets as well. Lots of great prizes being given in. You can spin the prize wheel. Many of the BPs do the pick a player promo. And you can also be entered to win a VIP experience for 4 at an upcoming Winnipeg Jets game. Watch the NFL and the Winnipeg Jets and enter to win at your local Boston Pizza, Winnipeg, Selkirk, Morden, Steinbach, and Portage La Prairie.
Yeah, us killing it with the reads from Qatar. Having a great time. And again, follow his social medias. We have some stuff on our social medias. I'll give a shout out to those. Sports Talk, WPG on everything. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. The links are in the description of this video. So if you want to get more updates from us, give a follow to those. And if you go on TikTok, we're closing in on, I think, close to 1,800 followers. I did post a video, 120, almost 130,000 views of me ranting about the digital board ads, which I'm kind of warming up to. Maybe, I don't know if maybe they toned it down a bit. I have noticed some companies, notably, I'll give a shout out to BioSteel. They had a terrible looking ad. Their graphics were hard to look at, but they've really changed it by putting different color bottles. So shout out to BioSteel. I don't know. That's the stuff that I notice when I watch hockey. Everyone's like, no, I don't notice some people, I don't notice the board ads because I'm watching the puck. And I'm like, I can't watch the puck because I'm seeing these board ads flashing behind me. But it feels like something that's going to be here to stay. We do have some clips from Rick Bowness. I want to hear what he had to say at the morning skate. The big story was the lineup changes. David Gustafsson in for Tornado on the fourth line. Morgan Barron is on the top line with Dubois and Connor. He also had an update on Logan Stanley. Here is Winnipeg Jets head coach Rick Bowness.
Rick, is David in tonight?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah, and listen, Tony did an outstanding job for us. He had a really good game. But David's been one of our top penalty killers all year. And clearly with the power play that the Avs are going to throw at us tonight, we need our best penalty killers out there. So it's more based on the opponent in this situation. Tony had a very, very solid game for us.
Right wing on the top line is now Morgan Barron's to, I guess, audition for. How do you look at that?
He's played there with Dewey apparently last year a little bit, but he's reliable on both ends of the ice. He's reliable on both sides of the boards. He got caught out there a couple of times in Chicago, made some great plays off the boards. That's where he belongs, to be in that top six.
And I think Logan Stanley skated today.
A little bit.
How far away is he at this point?
It's got, you got to give him a few more. We're going to practice tomorrow and on Thursday, so we got to give him a few more days. Sure.
Yeah, Logan Stanley, we talked about that with Mike. That's one to watch. Who's going to get sent down? It's fun to speculate, but they can definitely take their time with him, as Dylan Sandberg has really made a home. One thing I talked about, I think it was last week and this week, is the Jets' home and road split. They're 7-2-0 at home, 6-4-1 on the road. And you saw some games early on the road. In the Arizona, they didn't play their best, but they ended up getting a win. And LA, they played pretty rough, but got a win there too. Vegas, they got the overtime loss. I remember Dallas early on, it was not great. They lost. They did lose that one, but have beat the Stars twice since. Shout out to Kelly Moore, who asked Bones, and he gave a great answer on their home and road splits and why, if he's seeing different style of play from the Jets.
I think there was a much bigger difference early in the year. I don't see as much of a difference now. We're not giving up very much on the road now either. Regardless what a shot clock tells you, we always go more by the quality chances that we monitor and what we're giving up. So the chances against the grade A's on the road have gone down a lot, regardless of the score, regardless of the shot clock. So that's just because those things will balance themselves out over time. So we're seeing a lot less of a difference on the road and at home. We're seeing us play pretty much the same way on the road as we do at home.
So based on that then, because you played Colorado so early in the year, do you see that translating into some things that you do differently against the Avalanche tonight?
Yeah, we won the game, but we want to play better. We want to play better than we did in Colorado. We don't want to rely on our goaltender to make the difference in the game. We want a team game. Our team game has to be better tonight. So, again, yeah, we won the overtime and everything, but our team game has to be better tonight than it was even in the game we won in there. So we're counting on that.
I love hearing all this stuff from Bones. He's saying we need to be better, and they've come and they've been better. And he came into the year saying we need to improve in the following areas, and they have, and they are top of the division in points percentage. We spent a lot of time talking about Morgan Barron, who's going to be on the top line with Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois. Here's Bones, head coach Rick Bowness, on what he wants to see from Morgan Barron.
Just reliable defensively, which will free them up a little bit more offensively, and they can gamble a little bit more when we need them to gamble a little bit more, and someone that can hang onto the puck and make plays, and he's good at that. So your top players have to play with your top players as much as you can. You're healthy when you can do that. So it's great to have Morgan back. We know he was playing very well early in the year with Lau and Apple, but that situation can't present itself right now. So we want him playing an important role, and this is an important role for him.
I'm excited to see Morgan Barron on that top line. Nice return there in that Andrew Kopp trade. You get the pick. They became Brad Lambert and Morgan Barron, and Barron's got a chance to make an impact tonight there. I don't know what his price is if you're playing daily fantasy, or I can look at CoolBet what his odds are, but maybe he's got a shot at scoring or getting a point if you're into betting on that. We'll go with we'll do one more. Josh Morrissey was named second star of the week. What a performance with the two winners. And Josh Morrissey talked about how he gave credit to Rick Bowness for, I guess, empowering him to be a better player. And that's all Morrissey needed. Rick Bowness say, hey, go be great. And he's been one of the best in the league, fourth in scoring. And I think it was John Liu asked Rick Bowness if he takes any credit for Morrissey being the second star of the week. And of course, Bones, he's like, yeah, I told him to do that. No, just kidding. Here's the clip.
Listen, the players play. They give him all the credit. He's got to go on the ice, and he's the one that's got to decide, I got to block a shot tonight, or I got to take a hit to make a play. Like, the players make those decisions. I don't make that decision for him. So the players get all the credit and I'm thrilled for him that he's being recognized for that. But I'm not the guy saying, I'm going on the ice, okay, block the shot. They have to think that. I got to get in the shooting lane. I got to take a hit to make a play. Now's the time I got to jump up. Now's the time I got to shoot, and now's the time I got to pass it. It's all the players. He deserves all that credit.
Josh was saying that pretty much all his teammates texted him yesterday when he found out that he'd been those honors were bestowed upon him. You see that as just another, endorsement of how close knit this group has become.
Yeah, it is, and they should respect each other, and that's the things we want, right? So I know when he got married this year, most of the guys were there. So again, it's probably a tighter group than we realize.
And Bones was saying that in the summer, and I think some of us here, maybe even me, kind of laughed at him and saying, hey, he's just saying that to hype people up for the season. But I think you got to believe it with the way that they're playing and the way the players have talked about the coaching staff. It's really been incredible to watch, and I don't think I saw this season going the way that it's going. Certainly, I thought they could battle for a playoff spot, but to be first in points percentage going up against the Colorado Avalanche at November 29 and have the best record or tied for the best record after 20 games. I didn't have that on my predictions list, so you're happy to see it, and it's great seeing everyone in here. There are a couple of surprises as we're the 20-game mark, quarter season. We can say, okay, what's happening? That's a surprise. What's not? New Jersey, 38 points at the East. I'll bring up the New Jersey, 38 points. They're pretty good. Who's Soroka, and he was the third star of the week for the Islanders. They got 30 points. They're second in the Metro Division. Carolina third. They had a bit of a rough go there. 3-3-4 in their last 10, and we saw them here last Monday. Detroit in a playoff spot. That's a bit of a surprise. They signed Andrew Kopp, who David Perron in the offseason. Steve Yzerman's made some real smart moves for them. And they got a positive goal differential, and they're ahead of Florida, who we've talked about throughout the show. One of the disappointing starts after that great year last year in the West. Seattle has to be the story. I dumped on them I didn't like what they did in the expansion draft, but they made some good free agent, some good offseason moves, trading for Bjorkstrand, who they got basically for free from Columbus, and signing Burakovsky. And they're also getting goaltending from Martin Jones. They've won 5 in a row. And Matty Berniers, who was their top pick. He's leading rookies in scoring, and Vegas having a bounce back year. Jack Eichel's healthy, and he's one of the top players in the league. And we question their goaltending. Logan Thompson, he's been pretty good, and Aiden Hill stepped in. LA's third. They're in the in the Pacific. Edmonton just behind them. They've got depth questions. They got a 2-game win streak. They won last night against Florida, but I don't know about Edmonton. Skinner's been pretty good. And Calgary, the Calgary and Florida, the two disappointing teams out of the playoffs. Huberdeau's bounced around. He was started on the top line. He's back there today, but he's injured. He was on the third line. I don't know. They got some new additions, and it just hasn't really clicked there. But I think Calgary's going to pull it off. They also, Markstrom not playing at the level they did last year. Vancouver's played a bit better. They've got a 3-game win streak. They were a complete mess to start the year. I don't think they're a playoff team, but they're playing a lot better than they were to start, which they got the same, believe it or not, they got the same goal differential as Edmonton and LA. So maybe Vancouver is a bit better than we think. Throat is failing. Yeah, I got a sick kid at home, and we've been dealing with that and lack of sleep with a 1-month-old. We'll wind down the show. Let me take a drink of water. I'll wind down the show. I'll take a drink of water. Yeah, it's been a rough month for me in terms of getting optimal sleep. Oh, I got to turn on my. We'll bring in the cool bet line. If anyone's got any picks or games they want to watch, write them in chat. And I guess I never did the why not question of the day. What do you think of the Jets' 20-game start? Do you think they're for real? Do you think they're going to be in the playoffs? What's been the biggest surprise for you as they sit in the playoff spot? I'm going to have to wind down this show. Yeah, my throat is winding down. Lightning Bruins, that's a pretty good game. Bruins -166 favorites. Sharks Canadians. I took Erik Karlsson late in a fantasy draft, so I've been loving the Sharks. I watch a lot of West Coast games too after my wife goes to bed, so I love watching their power play. Meyer, Karlsson, Hurdle, they're pretty strong. This is a game to watch too. Carolina, like Tampa, Boston, another divisional one. Carolina, Pittsburgh tonight. Carolina looking back to get back to their winning ways. As I mentioned, they're record in the last 10. Islanders, Flyers, can they keep it going? Ducks, Predators, divisional matchup for the Preds. Roman Josi, I had him in fantasy. He was off to a slow start. I don't know if last year was like overperforming for them because they had such a great season. I remember Duchesne had this huge year. We'll see what happens with them. We haven't really talked about them much. Big divisional matchup here. The Jets +166 home dogs. If you like betting on home dogs, that's not a bad one. I want to see if you can get Morgan Barron as a scorer. I'll just throw one for fun if you like the long shot ones. I'm curious what he is, getting this big opportunity today, but it doesn't appear to be loading for me. And we'll go. I know Calgary, Florida. Maybe you want to bet Huberdeau. I'm more of a prop guy than an outright guy. So Huberdeau to get a point or score in the revenge game. Yeah, my browser. Oh, here we go. Will or will not score. It's funny they have Barron. Is he even listed in here? I don't even know if he's listed. They're not on. They may not be as on top of Perfetti +3 to 4-5. That's not bad. Dubois. Yeah, no Barron. So I would have to call our friends at Cool Bet to add him. What do we got here? We have Florida, Calgary. I mentioned that one. Washington, Vancouver. Washington's an interesting team. And Seattle, who's been still a big divisional matchup there. All right. So we got to wind down the show. We got to put the podcast up and all that. If you are here, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into the show. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the show. I know Phyllis has been there trying to get everyone to 200 likes. We are close. We're trying to get to like 8,500 subscribers. It's been kind of slow the last bit. If you want to help with the show as well, subscribe to the podcast on Apple too, Spotify. We're on there. And join us on all our social medias as well. Sports Talk WPG. The description of this video on YouTube has links. And if you're watching after you made it this far, leave a comment. We love seeing those. And I do respond to pretty much all of them. And last call, we do have I'll mention it tomorrow. We do have a contest going for Moose tickets on Saturday. WinnipegSportsTalk.com/contest, or just go to WinnipegSportsTalk.com. Hit contest at the top. We got a couple pairs of Moose tickets to go away on Saturday's game against Milwaukee. Big shout out to all of our sponsors here as we wind it down. Canadian Club, Nick and Nicky DQ with 4 locations in Winnipeg. But we all know him. You hear us say all the time. DQ Northgate, DQ, Neverville. What is it? DQ. Oh, God. I'm embarrassing myself not being able to do it. DQ, St. Anne's, and DQ. What's the other one? Oh, God. Nick's going to be so mad at me. He's going to be so mad at me. Look, I'm live. My throat is failing me. And we'll just keep it going. Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Not Auto, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Cool Bet, Culligan Water, Consolidated Supply, Vita Health, and Walls Walls. Thank you, Lyndon, DQ Pole Park. I was just quizzing you guys. If you knew. Thank you to Lyndon for DQ. And yes, DQ Qatar, which Hustler went to. Hustler did tell, I haven't seen a ton of food reviews. He did tell me he did have Wendy's in Qatar, which I thought was amazing too. Anyways, I see everyone in the chat writing all them. Everyone writing them. All right, guys. I got to wind it down, put up the podcast. Thank you, everyone. Hit the thumbs up. We had such a fun show. Talk about the Jets at the quarter season. Looking ahead to tonight's game against Colorado. And tomorrow, good show coming up. We'll be recapping the game. I know Paul Edmonds popping on. And, of course, Murat Atet. Anyways, I guess for me, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm just going to say, I got to get a sign off. Maybe I'll say bye-bye. Thank you.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.